this tokenization platform will begin to unlock and unleash a whole array of both public and private assets and provide more accessibility for those to a wider array of global audience. And we're super excited to work with Binance about what those opportunities might be. These opportunity sets around digital assets and how they interface with securities and how securities can ride on these rails. We think that unlocks a lot of opportunities for Binance platform users to be able to grow an array of products and services to help meet their long-term needs.
BENJI is now being used as collateral in Binance's settlement network, which is a huge industry milestone for both crypto and traditional finance. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Binance Studios. Now, today we're joined by Roger Bayston, Head of Digital Assets at Franklin Templeton, one of the world's largest investment firms, managing over $1.6 trillion in assets. Now, Franklin has been at the forefront of innovation, pioneering tokenized funds and on-chain money market products. And you might have seen it just recently, Binance and Franklin Templeton have announced a strategic collaboration aimed at really accelerating the development of institution-grade digital asset products. It's a landmark step in bridging together traditional finance and crypto. We're going to hear much more about that and more now with Roger. So Roger, first of all, thank you so much for joining today. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. We're really excited about this opportunity to be working with Binance.
We're thrilled to hear more about it as well. Before we get into that, I'm curious to hear a little bit more about you and the role that you're doing at Franklin. So I did have a little bit of a look at your history. You've been with Franklin Templeton since 1991 and have witnessed multiple waves of changes in the global markets. So just to kick things off, I'm really curious to hear, at what point did you start to see DLT, distributed ledger technology, as more than just an experiment, but also something that we could see that genuinely just reshapes the way that asset management works?
Yeah, my personal journey, and I guess, was be responsible for kicking off Franklin Templeton's exploration into digital assets and the underlying DLT technology that digital assets ride on. Probably started about 7 years ago. I guess I was wise enough in my career to keep hiring people who are much smarter than I was. I mean, smarts comes in different forms, right? Clearly, the multiple decades of experience I've had in the capital markets and in asset management gave me a certain level of wisdom. But technical expertise is always, constantly evolving as technologies move forward. And I was just paying attention to that word ledger I was really focused on that because I knew enough that capital markets and asset management as well were just full of ledgers. And so it felt like, despite, whether it was, Bitcoin or whether it was other sorts of manifestations of these things that, were all, had all the buzz around them, this idea that there was a technology that was potentially poised to replace this entire mosaic or spaghetti bowl of, solutions that have connected capital markets and asset managers with a new type of ledger technology seemed really interesting to be attentive to. And so that began our journey, quite frankly, about 7 years ago to explore how we would use distributed ledger technology in our overall larger business.
Okay, fantastic. So you saw the opportunity there and you have just ran with it since. And now I'm curious to hear a little bit more. Obviously, we're having the conversation today in collaboration with the Binance and Franklin Templeton announcement. And I think one of the core elements of that and the kind of conversations surrounding it is looking at the token unlocks and utility unlocks that we do see on chain with BENJI token. So from your experience so far, what are some of the advantages that you see being unlocked on chain? And I guess it kind of comes from a range of different opportunities, from efficiency, liquidity, as you mentioned, accessibility. And what do you see with BENJI compared to the traditional fund structures?
Yeah, that's really interesting. This was, when we first started this exploration in DLT, we weren't quite sure, where it was headed. We did focus specifically on, a very large sector of the funds business, which is our money market funds. And in the U.S., money market funds total some $7 trillion in assets. So they're really a trusted form where both individuals and institutions, maintain some of their, safeguarding their assets in low risk opportunities, if they may be using these monies for any number of reasons, but they certainly are a de-risking asset. And money funds have been cured through a number of different economic and credit cycles, including the global financial crisis itself. So these kind of brands of trust felt like a good place to start our experimentation. And what we decided to do was essentially be able to, run the transaction records for these funds, these money funds, on the DLT infrastructure. Not quite sure where that was going to go, just understanding that we were trying to unpack and understand what the technology do. But lo and behold, yes, this one of the most boring, lowest risk things on planet Earth, U.S. government money market funds, we have been able to carve up and provide new utilities for those. I think two things come to mind specifically. One is the fact that we can actually transfer, or users of BENJI can actually transfer BENJI from one holder to the next, practically instantaneously, as fast as a record can be, appended onto a blockchain. And by the way, we use some, I think, 9 different blockchains, wallet infrastructures we built at Franklin Templeton to be able to hold BENJI. But I mean, that is in fractions of a second in some of these cases. So this practically instantaneous transfer is a interesting feature set. Another thing, the differentiation between, stables and money funds are that money funds, through regulatory permissions and supply the yield from the underlying collateral to the customers and clients. Well, we've been able, due to the composability of the blockchains, to be able to break out the 24 hours into seconds. So literally, if I transfer you BENJI or you transfer it to me, you begin earning that interest the very second that it gets transferred to you. And you don't have to wait for 24 hours to earn that. You might only hold BENJI for a couple of hours and you'll still earn the yield just for those couple of hours. And this is all because of the new and increased utilities that the blockchains provide as new and improved infrastructure on this legacy funds business.
Absolutely. And it's really clear there, the demand that we are seeing for some of these products. I think this alludes quite nicely now into the alliance that we do have with Binance and what it means from your side, from Franklin Templeton, and some of the opportunities that we're seeing for Binance institutional clients and more besides.
Well, we kind of see the world in two large camps. Hopefully you'll indulge me here for a second. And there's those that have the digital wallets, so the Web 3.0 digital wallet ecosystem, Binance, and the hundreds of millions of users that have that. And then, quite frankly, there's a whole camp that want the wallets. And, the have wallet ecosystem, we see them as a journey to supply a whole bunch of array of new and interesting investment opportunities that might not just be in the land of digital assets, but would journey in toward securities-related transactions over time. And that's super exciting for us, because my personal reason for having dove into this is that we see these DLT and blockchain technologies unlocking a whole new array of investment opportunities for customers and clients globally that helps them build longer term wealth, and not just stuck into just very narrow opportunity sets of investments. That's super exciting, that we can help lay the foundation for new and better solutions for people for their long-term investing.
Yes. And it's really exciting there to see some of the opportunities. I think bridging the gap is a phrase that we hear all the time in crypto, but it's only really with organizations like yourself that those bridges are able to be formed at the scale that we need for global adoption to really get underway. Now, I'm going to dive into some of the other trends that we're seeing in the industry and just curious to hear your perspective. So first of all, with enormous $1.6 trillion of assets under management, obviously Franklin will really have a front row seat to the table of scale of opportunity for trends like real world assets, or as we know in crypto, RWA. I'm curious to hear from you how you think the scale on demand and opportunity is for the RWA industry at the moment.
Well, I think our big picture long-term thought is that these technologies will begin probably, quite frankly, in earnest as the regulatory environment in the U.S. has shifted dramatically since the first of the year, begin to penetrate the capital markets and therefore asset management industries pretty quickly. We had, just our own experimentation, our own research and development over these years has proven to us that there are operational efficiencies that we gain from using these technologies. It's kind of akin to all those years ago when Peter Lynch from the Fidelity Magellan Fund was was mentioning that, hey, if you're wearing Nike shoes, maybe you want to own Nike stock. I mean, our work inside of these blockchains have given us confidence that the information-based economies, that these are great pipes and rails for the information-based economies to move forward and be able to use as utilities, quite frankly. And so that's given us a lot of confidence that they're going to continue to grow and permeate. And now with a more favorable regulatory environment in the United States, I think the changeover is going to be quite aggressive. Capital markets are always looking for ways to be far more efficient. 80 some years ago, we would pass you a piece of paper, with your mutual fund shares, and various technologies have evolved over time. This is just another technology that increases the efficiencies, culls out the middleman and the high seeking rents that they get for holding assets, and begins allowing those who invest capital to earn more on their capital due to the efficiencies. These are the big promise that we see, quite frankly, and why we think, the term RWA, certainly applies to our BENJI, but applies to a wide array of public and or private investment opportunities that will come to use these rails to deliver into these Web 3.0 wallet infrastructures.
So let's hone in there on the vision of blockchain, because I think RWA is a fantastic example. And you've mentioned there the promise of 24/7 trading and also near instant settlement as well is just a huge one, especially from the traditional financial space. You've got the current systems relying on T+1+2 settlement delays. So what other ways do you see blockchain and DLT? What other ways do you see it disrupting financial infrastructures? You obviously have your kind of ear to the pulse of what's trending and also the possibilities here.
Well, I think that's the big one that you're speaking about right away. How do we shrink down settlement time so that customers and clients actually can use their assets, use them more efficiently? It's a legacy anecdote, but I find myself in a real estate transaction in the U.S. and I'm moving money between financial institutions and moving assets among financial institutions and even trying to settle the real estate transaction. And in so doing, we're talking about days and days and weeks of latency. And all of that latency provides a lot of interesting business revenue for those in the middle. And so I think this is one of the things that we caution about. If you are in some sort of intermediary role, I think these blockchain technologies are really something that you want to be attentive to. They're going to be disruptive. That doesn't mean that there's not opportunities for you, but you might have to remake what your business model is because of this idea that there's two record sets that are identical and we don't have to spend the time and effort and the friction and the expense to reconcile those two data sets. This unlocks a lot of things, probably many more than we have time here to mention. But for sure, creative folks and those with a lot of wisdom are going to be able to find these tools and using these tools to be able to increase their opportunities and solutions with customers and providing, advice and solutions for their long-term financial health.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's look at the future of BENJI and also tokenization. So as you've said as well, BENJI is now being used as collateral in Binance's settlement network, which is a huge industry milestone for both crypto and traditional finance. I'm curious to hear, Roger, looking ahead, do you see Franklin tokenizing other types of funds? Maybe we could see some multi-asset strategies or broader fixed income products. And what kind of things do you think are next for Franklin Templeton?
Yeah, we certainly see that, this tokenization platform will begin to unlock and unleash, a whole array of both public and private assets and provide more accessibility for those to a wider array of global audience. And we're super excited to work with Binance about what those opportunities might be. Quite frankly, our mantra at Franklin Templeton has always been listen to the customer. And the millions of customers that Binance has on the platform, we expect to have our ear to the ground with our friends to be able to understand what the solutions are that they're looking for to bring together. Now, there's still, I think, some industry regulation that needs to unfold in front, because the legacy asset management businesses are really built around the securities markets and securities businesses. And so as global regulators begin to understand these opportunity sets around digital assets and how they interface with securities and how securities can ride on these rails, we think that unlocks a lot of opportunities for Binance platform users to be able to grow an array of products and services to help meet their long-term needs away from and complement to some of the very digital asset-centric investments that they may hold on the platform.
Certainly. And it's definitely exciting to see the change in the potential crypto consumer now that we are seeing this intersection and convergence between traditional finance and the crypto landscape. So I'm going to ask now, if you had a crystal ball and you're able to look ahead 5 years, what are some of the things you are most bullish on, exciting you about tokenization becoming such a core part of institutional finance? Are there any kind of developments or kind of innovations that you are predicting to see, and also a shift that you think could be here to stay?
Well, 5 years is a long time in this industry. I sometimes joke that being head of digital assets at a great firm like Franklin Templeton is kind of like saying you're head of the internet department 25 or 30 years ago. Think how silly that might sound in hindsight, because the internet is just a technology that's ubiquitous that we all use, in our practically, every hour of our lives, quite frankly. And, what we see is this, DLT blockchain technology being interlaid inside of the economy to a place where, it's not called out that this is blockchain or DLT. And so, that is something that, that is a future step that we see happen. Now, what does that really mean and what excites me the most? And, I can't predict whether it's 5 years, whether it's 2 years, or whether it's 12 years. But the thing that I have always been really focused on for customers and clients is, how do we grow their opportunity set of investments? How do we shift up the efficient frontier rather than just having clients go out the risk spectrum to get their return? Is it possible that these DLT technologies unlock different and new types of investments that quite frankly help anchor in the possibilities of successful long-term financial health? I think another thing that we can think about is, how do we actually just move away from the historic two-dimensional world of risk and return and understand that people have other desires and emotional needs and practical needs for their investment portfolios? What if you were somebody who wanted to make impact with your investments? Are there third and fourth dimensions that we begin to optimize towards, so that there's more of a plane of experiences rather than a tangent to a line? And those are, mathematical terms, but really the idea is, can you have better long-term outcomes because the DLT technology unlocks more investment opportunities for you to weave into your portfolio over time? And I and Franklin Templeton Investments say, yes, that is the case. And so we're really looking forward to this next journey together with Binance on all sorts of opportunities in digital assets.
Great to hear. And now, just finally, as we wrap up, for a lot of the audience that are watching the Binance YouTube channel, I think we have over 1.1 million of us listening in. But a lot of these our audience and community are retail crypto users that are getting into the crypto industry, and always so curious to hear from crypto native hedge funds or institutions on what kind of trends they're seeing within the industry. So Roger, based on your network, the conversations that you're having, what kind of trends are you seeing right now, as a kind of a summary and wrap up?
Well, I think there's obviously the tailwinds of the regulatory environment in the U.S. changing dramatically has unleashed, even more investors, and the possibilities that these technologies get interlaid across the capital markets has created a great deal of enthusiasm across a wider array of projects and solutions. The things that we're excited about are not just the growth of the, some of the blockchain networks, but some of the DePIN projects, quite frankly, where we're applying this networking concept to solving, human coordination, physical infrastructure opportunities and projects, whether it's, predicting weather or any other number of things that come to really bear on people's lives all over the planet. And so it's just, again, an exciting time to be involved in doing these things. We expect that, like all capital markets over time, and by the way, we do believe crypto is capital, by the way. And that foundation of crypto is capital leads us to, wanting to proffer the best advice possible to users to protect themselves, their families, and their long-term financial health. And so some of these trends that we see, we expect there will be, dramatic leaps ahead and some pullbacks that might occur as the global economy fluctuates. But for sure, we're in an exciting time of a lot of different technologies, both blockchain and AI, that are really going to be transformative to life on planet Earth. And we look forward to being on this journey of helping counsel customers and clients with great advice to help them achieve their objectives.
What a fantastic final answer. Thank you so much. And I'm currently crafting the agenda for Binance Blockchain Week. So I've taken note that DePIN is a narrative and trend that you're looking into, and we'll make sure to have it represented on the agenda. Roger, first of all, thank you so much for taking time out of such a busy schedule to join us. And also congratulations on the news. And I'm sure our community are really excited to hear about it. So thank you so much for taking the time to break it down today.
Look forward to chatting with you again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And guys, thank you so much for watching. If you've not yet already, do make sure to subscribe to the channel not to miss more updates like this.